So, very good afternoon to all of you. And today we will start Beacons of Truth. Now, uh, discussing anything on truth is very complicated and as well as a very tough thing to do because so many philosophers for a long period of time have been in search of truth. What is the very essence of truth? What actually truth is? And there are debates on whether there is anything like an absolute truth, or the truths are relative, truths change, and various philosophical schools were in debate on this particular issue. But Bacon here is not resorting to any philosophical ideology or any philosophical idea, or he is neither supporting nor going against any particular philosophical truth. But what he is doing is actually giving a basic idea of truth, and how truth actually gets merged up with our lives, with our daily life, and how you can use truth in the context of the very basic philosophy with which we live our everyday life. Now, Bacon is discussing the things in general, discussing the ideas related to truth in general. Now he starts with a biblical reference. He gives the reference of Pilate. Now Pilate was the governor of Judea who was in charge of the judgment of Christ. So he was there as a judge when Christ was given the death sentence. Now, Pilate was actually a skeptic, or he believed in the sophist or skeptic school. Actually, these skeptics are people who don't believe in any kind of, of, of ultimate truth, and they believe that truths are always changing, and truths actually change with the change in belief of individuals. So we have our Indian philosophical school who believe that there is no such thing as the ultimate truth, or the pure truth. Truth always changes with the change in belief. Now, uh, this is how Bacon starts his essay. He says that what is truth, said jesting Pilate, and would not stay for an answer. So Pilate was actually in a very light-hearted mood when he asked the most grave question of philosophy, that what is truth? Because Pilate was a believer in skepticism and he never believed in any kind of ultimate truth, to him, truth was something that changes with the belief of an individual. So he very, with a jest, he poses the question, what is truth? Say, jesting Pilate, and would not stay for an answer, and he did not wait for a very steady and serious answer to his question. Bacon says, certainly there be that delight in giddiness. Now, giddiness means this restlessness, this frivolity. Now, he says that there may be some kind of delight in this kind of frivolity while asking the most gravest question, and count it a bondage to fix a belief, affecting free will in thinking as well as in acting. Now, skeptics or the sophists like Pilate actually believe that it is a bondage of our belief when we fix to certain truth, and this kind of fixity affects, disturbs our free thinking, our free will, and our free acting. Now Bacon is actually questioning or challenging what Pilate actually believed. And he says that Pilate's question was a very frivolous question, and he that was a very actually that is a very grave question, but asked very with frivolity. So, and though the sects of philosophers of that kind are gone, he says that the sophist school or the skeptic school no longer exist, yet there remain certain discoursing weeds which are of the same weeds, same wheat. Now he says that some people still believe in the ideas of skepticism and sophism, though there be not so much blood in them as was in those of the ancients. So he is actually criticizing the present skeptics. He says that the ancient the skeptic school was more serious in their beliefs and their ideas, but nowadays, that is the time which was contemporary to Bacon, he says that some people are still there who follow skepticism or who follow the skeptic school of belief, but they do not do it seriously. He says that they lack the serious blood in them, which was there in the school, in the believers of the skeptic school in the ancient days. But it is not only, he says that it is not only the difficulty and labor which men take in finding out of truth, nor again that when it is found, it imposes upon men's thought. So he says that truth has its own power. He says, but it is not only the difficulty and labor which men take in finding out of truth. So he says that to find out the truth, men require labor and difficulty. It demands a hard work and serious labor to find out the truth, and says again that when it is found, it imposeth upon men's thought that bring lies in favor, but a natural, the corrupt love of the lie itself. He says that to find out the truth, something which we can say is the ultimate truth, to find out the truth, it requires serious labor and hard work. It is a very difficult task to find out the truth, one. And when you are successful in finding out the truth, you no longer can change it. The truth itself, which has been discovered, it sits upon you firmly. Then you no longer can change your views. He says that these two reasons are not the sole reason for which some people, they try to maintain a sort of distance from truth, and they are in favor of lie. But lie has its other allurements. It is much more alluring for other reasons for which people take resort to lies. So he says, this, just try to understand this, that he says that the discovery of truth or finding out the truth requires hard labor, one, and a serious, it is a very difficult thing to find out. And once it is discovered, it sits on you very firmly so that you cannot change your views once the truth has been discovered. But Bacon says that these two reasons are not the sole reasons for which men take resort to lies. Then what are the reasons behind this favoring for lies? One of the later school of the Grecians examineth the matter and is at a stand to think what should be in it that men should love lies. Now here he refers to Lucian's love of the lie. Lucian was a satirist, and he belonged to 125 AD. He was a satirist who figured in the year 125 AD or around that, and he wrote Lover of the Lie, and there he actually examined the reasons behind people's why lies are so much favorite to the people. Why do people favor lies than truth? Now he says one of the later school of the Grecians examined the matter in and is at a stand to think what should be in it that men should love lies. That what are there, he tried to find out what are the reasons for which men love lies, where neither they make for pleasure as with poets, nor for advantage as with merchant, but for the lie's sake. So the common people don't love lies because, like the poets, they don't believe that lies only give you pleasure. It is not the only reason. Or like the merchants who believe that love actually, sorry, that merchants who believe that lie actually gives you profit. These two are not the reason for which people favor lies, but lies has its own allurements, and it is not very clear why people favor lies than truth. It has its own point of attractions. It attracts people in various ways. So you cannot categorize the reasons for which people love or favor lies than truth. But I can tell the same truth is a naked and open delight. Now, Bacon comes back to the discussion of truth again, and he says that truth is like the naked and open daylight that not shew the masks and mummies and triumphs of the world half so stately and daintily as candlelights. So he says that when you see a scene in the mask or a play or any other shows, so when you see those things in candlelight with light effects and with certain effects of illumination and lightings, so you find them more interesting because of this mixture of shadow and light. But when you see the things in the broad daylight, those things are not that much interesting. They're very clear, but they are not interesting. Now here Bacon will bring the point that when lies are mixed up with truth, it becomes much more interesting. But the important thing is that truth is clear like the broad daylight, and which is very open, which is very clear, which has its own clarity, which you won't find the things which you see in candlelight, where the darkness and light has its own combination to make the things appear before you with certain light and darkness, with certain shadowy with certain shadows or shadowy reflections. Okay, now he says that, but I can tell the same truth is a naked and open daylight. So truth is like the naked and open daylight that not shew the masks and mummies and triumphs of the world half so stately and daintily as the candlelight. So the candlelight is much more interesting and much more exciting than the things that you see in broad daylight. Truth may perhaps come to the price of a pearl that sheweth best by day. So truth is like the pearl, so that you can appreciate in the broad daylight. But it will not rise to the price of a diamond or a carbuncle that sheweth best in varied lights. But when you see a carbuncle, a big sort of diamond, or a diamond, normal diamond, that depends on the reflections and refractions of light. So there you need the technical or a much more what to say, it's a uh, processed refraction and reflections of light that actually makes the carbuncle or the diamond more beautiful. But when you see a plain pearl, it is much more beautiful in the broad daylight. So truth is like the pearl, but truth when mixed up with lies are like the diamond and the carbuncle, which needs certain processings or processing of the reflection and refraction of light that sheweth best in varied lights. So he comes to the point that a mixture of a lie that ever add pleasure. So bare truth is not always interesting. It is not always pleasurable. So when you mix up the truth with certain lies, it becomes interesting. It makes your life more interesting. So ever add pleasure. Doth any man doubt that if there were taken out of man's minds vain opinions, flattering hopes, false valuations, imaginations is one word, and the like, but it would leave the mind of a number of men poor, shrunken things, full of melancholy and indisposition and unpleasanting to themselves. So he says that life becomes more interesting because of our flattering hopes. So we hope certain things which are not true or which may not be true. We hope for certain, we have vain opinions that I'm this, I'm that. All these are vain opinions. We have false valuations. So all these things actually make our life more interesting, and becomes that it is a very acceptable fact that if you just squeeze out all these things, extract all these things from your life will become a drab one, a very bland one, a very common and tasteless one. Okay, so full of this. So he says, but it would leave the mind of a number of men poor, shrunken thing. It will just shrink the man to a very poor person without any kind of excitement. Full of melancholy, then that person will be full of melancholy and indisposition and unpleasanting to them. So their life will become very unpleasant to themselves, because all these lies are not good, but it has certain effects in our life, and these lies actually make our life interesting. It is just like the very spices. So lies are the very spices of life. One of the fathers means a church priest, one of the fathers in great severity, he was very serious and severe, called poesy vinum demonum. So he says that poets and their works, poetry is the wine of the demon. Why? Because it feeleth the imagination. It actually fuels your imagination, and yet it is but with the shadow of a lie. And imagination is what? It is just a shadow of a lie. It is not a very serious lie, because when you're reading a poem, you are very much aware of the fact that these are not true. So the problem lies when you start believing that these lies are actually the real facts and the real truths of our life, then it is problematic. The problem lies there. But when you are accepting the lies as lies, then there is no problem. So Bacon says that one of the priests, he said that poetry is just the wine of the demon, but it is not true, because he said, why did he say so? He said that because he believed that it filleth the imagination, but yet it is but with the shadow of a lie. So he says that imagination that we find in poetry is just the shadow of a lie. But it is not the lie that passeth through the mind, but the lie that sinketh it and settleth in it, that the heart. So he says that the lie that you find in poetry, that does not settle and sink in your heart. It is just a passing feeling. It just passes through your mind. You are always aware that what you read in poetry or what you read in any other imaginary work of imagination. So these things are not true. So actually, these kind of lies, they don't hurt you. They are not very much uh, affecting. They are not very much detrimental to our reasoning faculty. But those lies which sink it into us, which sinks into us, those lies are harmful, such as we speak of before. Now, Bacon says that what I have said earlier, but don't he gives a sort of disclaimer that I am not mixing up the common lies with the lies that is related to imagination and what we find in poetry. Okay, but howsoever these things are thus in men's depraved judgments and affectations, a truth which only that judge itself teacheth. Now he says that only those who know the truth can realize its value. So once you have the taste of truth, once you have the very idea of truth, once you experience the very essence of truth, you will be only able to realize the value of truth. And then he says, a truth which only that judge itself teacheth, that when you realize the truth, you will be able to judge its value, and you will find that the inquiry of truth. So when you are searching for truth, which is like just like love making or wooing of it. So when you are inquiring, when you are in search of truth, you are doing what? You are wooing or trying to make love with truth. And the knowledge of truth, once you have the knowledge of truth, which is the presence of it. So the when you have acquired the knowledge of truth, it is very much present in front of you. And the belief of truth. So once first you search for truth, then you acquire the truth, and then you start believing the truth. And once you believe the truth, then he says believing the truth is actually enjoying the truth. So this is how Bacon gives another example of aphorism. He says that the search for truth is just like making love or wooing the truth. The knowledge of truth that you acquired is actually feeling the presence of the truth. And once you start believing the truth, you have started enjoying it. This is the sovereign good of human nature. So he says that this is the most essential and sovereign good that we find in human nature. Then he again resorts to Bible again and says about the Genesis story. And in Genesis, we find that God created this whole universe in 6 days, from chaos to cosmos. He transformed the chaos to cosmos. And the very first day he created light. And actually, God did not do it himself. He actually thought and he wished. He said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And on the 6th day, he created man and named him Adam. So this is what Genesis says. The first creature of God in the works of the days was the light of the sense. So he says that on the very first day, God created light, and that was the light of sense. The light was the light of reason. So on the very first day, he created the light of sense, and the last one that he created was the light of reason. So first he created sense, then he created man, and bestowed upon him the very light of reason. And his Sabbath work, Sabbath means what? Sabbath means the work that we do in our leisure period. So after one finishes his serious work, his Sabbath starts, and his Sabbath work ever since is the illumination of his spirit. So God created the light of sense on the very first day, and on the last day he created the light of reason. And after his serious work is over, he, as a Sabbath work, did what? He is bestowing the light of sense and reason upon his best creation. He is bestowing the Spirit of God unto man. First, he breathed light upon the face of the matter or chaos. Now, first there was chaos, and he breathed the light upon the face of the chaos. First, there was light, and after light, then he breathed light into the face of man. First, he gave light upon chaos, and then he breathed light upon man. And still he breathed and inspired light into the face of his heaven. Now he did what? He, after that, once he had finished his work, in his sabbatical work, as a sabbatical task, he is doing what? He is bestowing the light of sense and reason upon his chosen animal, chosen creation, that is man. And constantly is doing so. So God, what Bacon wants to say is that God is always bestowing us with the possibilities of reason and sense, which is actually true, and which is the very essence of truth. And it is our duty to accept them, to receive them, to use them, to achieve them, to believe them. Okay. The poet that beatified the sect was otherwise inferior to the rest, said well excellently. So here we find that Lucretius, the Epicurean, he was an Epicurean philosopher of 95 BC. So he says that all reasonings should be based upon truth. So Lucretius believed that all reasonings should be based upon truth. And here Bacon gives a quotation from Lucretius. He writes, "It is a pleasure to stand upon the shore and to see ships tossed upon the sea." So he says that it is our pleasure. It is very pleasurable to stand upon the shore and see how the ships are sailing. A pleasure to stand in the window of a castle, if you stand in the window of a castle, and to see the battles and the adventures thereof below, and you can see that how the battles are fought and how life is going on below. For you can see that from the very high top window of a castle, and to see a battle and the adventures thereof below. But no pleasure is comparable to the standing upon the vantage ground of truth. But all these pleasures are not comparable with the truth that you can see, with the wall that you can see from the vantage point of truth. When you see things through the lens of truth, the things you see are more pleasurable than all the pleasurable things that you generally find in life. But no pleasure is comparable to the standing upon the vantage ground of truth, and to see the errors and wanderings and mists and temples in the well below. So when you see the errors, the wanderings, the misconceptions, the misrepresentations, all through the lens of your truth, that particular seeing is much more pleasurable than all the pleasurable things in the world. So when you see the things through the lens of your truth, through the lens of truth, you find that what you see around as false things are false things. These are not true, because you are seeing things through the lens of truth, and you have now the power to segregate what is true and what is not true, what is good and what is not good. So always that this prospect to be titty and not with swelling or pride. And then Bacon gives a very rejoinder, he gives gives a warning that when you are able to see things through the lens of truth, you should have pity for the things which have not yet been able to come in contact with truth. Don't see the things like misconceptions, errors, wanderings as with pride that I have achieved truth. Now I'm more powerful, I'm more blessed, I'm more chosen, and these things are not like me. Don't feel your pride, but always see through the lens of your truth the things which are not true with a sense of pity. You should pity them. Certainly, it is heaven upon earth to have a man's mind move in charity. So when your mind is moving with charity, so when you have charity in your mind, rest in providence and turn upon the poles of truth. So when your mind has charity and you have total surrender of your will to God, you are in heaven. So when you have surrendered your total will to God and you have a sense of charity, you are in heaven, because only then you will be able to make the best use of the truth that you have achieved. To pass from theological and philosophical truth to the truth of civil business. Now, Bacon says that truth is not always related to theological ideas and philosophical ideas, but in our daily lives, we can also have the test of truth. The truth of civil business, it will be acknowledged even by those that practice it not, that those who don't practice truth in their daily lives, they will also acknowledge that clear and round dealing is the honor of man's nature. So it is the honor of man's nature to deal with truth, and that mixture of falsehood is like an alloy in coin of gold and silver, which may make the metal work better, but it embaseth it. So he says that mixing up truth with falsehood is like what? Making the coins, making the alloy coins. So you cannot use a coin made of pure gold or pure silver. You need to mix certain uh, base metals into it to make it more usable. That is true. That is a fact. But when you are alloying the coins with base metals uh, like uh, brass or other things, bronze or any other thing. So you are doing what? You are debasing the very quality of that metal. So you need to, for our daily lives, we need to mix up truth with falsehood. But that is a necessity. That is a necessity. But if we do that, being fully aware that this alloying, this mixture embeds the very quality of our life, because then truth gets mixed up with falsehood. So, for these winding and crooked courses are the goings of the serpent, which goeth basely upon the belly and not upon the feet. So he says that when you take the winding course, when you take the very crooked course, you are like just moving like a serpent or a snake. And the snake never moves on their foot. They never walk on their foot, but they crawl with their belly. Now, Bacon says that when you are taking a winding or crooked way, that is not something very commendable. That is a very base thing that you do. Okay. There is no wise that do cover a man with shame as to be found with false and perfidious. So he says that when you take resort to falsehood and perfidy, you are the most base creature like the serpent. So that is what Bacon believes. Then he goes on to say about Motha. So Motha was a 16th century French writer, and he first gave the very idea of essay. So he takes resort to Motha. Motha say it prettily when he inquired the reason why the word of the lie should be such a disgrace and such an odious charge. Says he, that why the words of truth are very disgracefully say that if it be well weighed to say that a man lieth is as much as to say that he is brave towards God and cowards towards men, for a lie faces God and shrinks from man. So underline these lines, very important line. He says that when a man, Motha says, that when a man tells a lie, he's doing what? He is a coward. He is afraid of telling the truth to his friends or acquaintances, but he shows the courage to defy God, because when you tell a lie, you are defying the very ideas, the very instructions of God, because God always instructs us. God always tells us to tell the truth, to follow the path of truth. So when you are telling lie, you are afraid of facing people. This is very foolish thing. So you are afraid of common people, you are afraid of your fellows, but you have the courage to defy God. You are defying God, but you don't have the power to face your friends or acquaintances. Surely, the wickedness of falsehood and breach of faith cannot possibly be so highly expressed as in that it shall be the last peal to the call, the judgments of God upon generations of man. He says that when you are true on the judgment day, when God will play his trumpet and call all of us for judgment, you will be weighed. Your works, your activities will be weighed. And then only truth will save you, not falsehood. That when Christ cometh, he shall not find faith upon the earth. So if this earth is full of falsehood, Christ will lose faith in us. So on the judgment day, your truth will save you, not your falsehood. So Bacon says what he wants to say rather is that truths are bare, truths are uninteresting, but that is the only sole thing, the very essence of our living, which will sustain you, help you, and ultimately take you to the path of happiness, to the path of heaven, which falsehood cannot. So, this is where I would like to finish this discussion.